You can record. All right, we're started. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Super Galactic Saturday. Today's May 11th, and it's a kind of an overcast Saturday morning. It's not too bad though. It looks like the sun's going to be coming out and it's going to burn it all away. So, looks like beach weather eventually. Um,
Eventually.
but thankful for today. Thankful always. Any day above ground is a good day, right?
Yep.
And this is Jerry Sr., and I'm with Jerry Jr.,
Morning.
also known as Rocket Brown, also known as Come Along Radio. He has
Well,
his own podcast that he does on a regular basis,
well,
talking
I,
about
I'm
Tokyo pop and all that good stuff, right?
I'm also known as Rocket Brown on Come Along Radio, so it
On
all
Come
works out.
Along, yeah, there you go, yeah. So awesome, yeah. So and I'm the Alphatron, my main character in Super Galactic Fantastic Dimension. Um, And no, it's not a self insert. In fact, Alphatron is really a sort of this amalgamation of my two sons. Uh, his qualities kind of remind me of both of them.
Oh
So
boy.
that's really more what he represents, not really me directly. I think I'm more like Big Russ than Alphatron. So.
Yeah, I figured you'd say
But Big
that.
Russ is he's more based off of like Carl Weathers, Bubba
hmm
Smith, Refrigerator Perry, like some of these guys I grew up watching, Bo Jackson, like that's
The
kind of
what was it? The $6 billion man.
no, the $6 million man. Yeah, definitely Lee Majors and Bionic Man, all that kind of stuff. So those are the inspirations for Big Russ. But yeah, but Alphatron, yeah, definitely my two boys, and they're the good and the bad. Mostly
Good to
good, of
know.
course.
Can't wait to read this comment when it comes out.
So, you can't wait to read it. Well, you're helping to write it. So,
I know that's true. Oh boy.
but yeah, so today, if you see the headlines, the first thing that kind of struck my attention, I think I saw it. Yeah, I saw it this morning. X-Men '97. Uh, seems like it's flopped. I guess it's not doing well in ratings.
Well, is the show over, or is it still
I don't
streaming?
know. I'll be honest. I haven't watched it. I don't have Disney Plus. I
Yeah,
canceled Disney Plus
I don't have
like
Disney
two
Plus either.
years ago. So I don't. I got tired
Can't even
of
see the ratings.
the DI injected TV shows. The race swapping, the gender swapping, the messaging. It was just too much, and I'm kind of done with the Disney Marvel universe. So even though this is a reboot from the '97 series, animated series, which was brilliant, um, it's like it's kind of bittersweet because I would love to engage in and watch it and enjoy it because I've heard good things from people who have watched it,
hmm
and I've seen clips online of certain scenes, with Cyclops, etc., that looked really awesome. That looked really, really cool. So it looks like it is a well produced show overall. There might be some things that others, might nitpick about or just don't like. Like I know there was some issues with the way Rogue was being handled, like her characterization.
Oh, really?
She's very angry, excuse me, about certain situations they're in, right? And losing Gambit and losing others, I believe, including Magneto. I don't know if Magneto dies, but it has to do with something like that. And she actually kills someone, and a lot of people didn't like that. That she not only did she kill someone, but the other X Men didn't really try to stop her, right? Or at least intervene.
Oh,
So,
I see.
and I think the clip was shared, you know, online. I know I saw it on Twitter. It was kind of like, oh wow, yeah, it's getting pretty dark. So so that but I don't know the whole context because, like I said, I haven't watched it, so I'm not gonna say, oh man, they're too dark. It's like, well, hopefully throughout the course of the series, there's a some type of redemption arc for Rogue, right, and the X Men, and maybe there's some way, maybe the guy didn't really die, maybe someone rescued him, but they don't know it yet, or I don't know. So I'm not gonna you know pass judgment yet, but I think the bigger problem isn't the fact that the writing of the show was good or bad. I think it sounds like it was pretty solid. Visually, it was somewhat different, right, from what you expected. Like from the initial um, clips that I saw, it made me think of Archer, right? That type of
Yeah,
style,
the animation style.
which I like Archer. Archer's funny, right? So, and animation fits that tone of the show, right? It just works well. So, but with X Men, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of has this Archer kind of feel to it, and not necessarily the exact visual, but just the tone. It's the type of animation and the look and feel. Like it was very kind of,
With the cell shaded comic book
yeah, it
style.
was
Yeah.
kind of stiff the way, but the scene itself wasn't an action scene, right? It was just like kind of just a scene between two characters.
Well,
So,
to be
but
fair, I think from what I've seen, the characters move differently enough than how they do in Archer. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Once I saw more clips, it was like, okay, so it's not Archer per se, right? It's definitely different. It's just that those first initial scenes that were shared gave that impression. I think so. They probably
yeah,
should could have shared something very different that would have given you a different impression. But overall, like just from what I've seen, and I've only seen about a handful of clips, it does. The animation looks really nice. It looks beautiful. The artistic, the aesthetic looks really cool. And the animation itself looks really, especially the intense scenes, like the action scenes. So that's a positive. So I think overall the show is probably decent. It's probably pretty good, but I think the kicker is Disney is not right. Disney is not pretty good. Disney is not great right now because they have a lot of content that people don't like, right? And I don't mean their whole library. I just mean specific IPs like Star Wars and Marvel, which are huge, right? They're gigantic IPs relative to the rest of the library right now because they're more current. They were wildly popular, right? Overall, in their own right, right? And they've completely mishandled these IPs, and not just in regards to the uh, the movies or the series, right? The streaming series, but even with the theme park, the Star Wars theme park, and the pricing, and there's been a lot of issues.
yeah,
Um,
that's a whole nother can of
yeah,
worms.
if
You
you
know,
want to know like about like the theme park stuff, um, go to Lorena. Let me get her name right. Um,
well, there's a few YouTube channels that cover
yeah,
it.
there's a few
Um,
channels, but hers
Clownfish
is really
TV
thorough. Yeah,
covers a lot
Clownfish.
of
Yeah,
Disney
Clownfish
stuff.
is. Yeah, they're very good.
Um, if you want to know the history of Disney theme parks and where all their trouble stemmed from, Defunct Land is another good channel to follow.
Yeah, I've watched
They
that.
do documentaries
Yeah,
on Disneyland theme
and the one
parks.
the one I was thinking of is Lorena Creole, and
Okay,
at Lorena Creole, she has a YouTube channel. She's same thing. She's covered a lot of this stuff, and these people like Clownfish, I know for sure, and Lorena Creole, both of them are fans of Disney. Like they're not like just haters or something. Like these are people who, I believe Clownfish, him and or his wife, both worked with Disney. Like because they're artists, they're writers and artists.
yeah,
I believe they've worked with Disney in the past, so they were fans, and they may have even been investors. I know Lorena Kriegel has mentioned that she's been an investor, so it's like these aren't like just randos who are
Yeah,
just hating on Disney. It's
yeah.
like, no,
They
these are
used to
people
work in and
who,
around Disney
yeah,
before they stopped.
right, and they have an intimate knowledge. So check them out to get like the details on like what's been going on with Disney and especially Lorena Creel because I believe she lives in Florida, so she's right there at Disney World, park and all that stuff. So she's kind of on the front lines. So and I like her channel and she's really good. So um, I discovered her channel because she was a guest on Midnight's Edge, which is another
Um,
channel I love. So shout out to them as well. But yeah, it's like Disney Plus, Disney in general, but Disney Plus. It's like a lot of other streamers, they're not doing well. It's not as easy as they probably thought it was going to be, right? And so they're starting to flounder and they're losing money. And then, and a big part of it is the track record, right? Once we got to pretty much in game, right? Everything just went downhill. We saw hints of it prior to that, but once in game hit and they started, you know, this down this trail of because that's when Disney Plus really kind of took off, right? When they really launched hard and and
yeah,
it's like it's just this continual spiral downward in quality of the productions that they're doing because they're just going hard in the paint with the DEI stuff, with the race swapping, with the gender swapping, with the pushing of the message, right? As coined by Critical Drinker, right? And shout out to him as well. And it's like, you know, at first it was the hardcore fans, right? You know what I mean? The hardcore comic people, because and many of them they weren't on board way back before Endgame, right? Way back to the first Iron Man, right? A lot of them didn't care for like Nick Fury being cast by with Samuel Jackson because canonically and traditionally he's been a white male, and they said, "Oh, we're going to go with the black male." I said, "Okay." Now that's one of the race swaps where it kind of worked out. It wasn't made into as big of a deal because I think there's a huge amount of likability with Samuel Jackson, generally speaking. So and he played the role well up until Captain Marvel came out. So and
yeah.
then it just tanked after, right? Like all respect for that character in relation to the MCU, it's pretty much gone. Like it's this, and it's tragic, and that's and now what's called
We're,
our
we're-
normal audience. They're starting to sense and see, like, you know what, these movies and shows aren't very good.
You're
They're
talking about Nick Fury, right? I think the
yeah,
uh, the issue with the Nick Fury in the movies is um, he's not he's not the Nick Fury from the comics,
right.
and it's not in just the sense that he's a black dude, but also he doesn't
Well,
act
yeah,
like because like
there's
Nick
a lot of
Fury, if
other.
I remember correct, was like he was a secret agent action dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, right. He was in the fray.
And we
Right? He
never really
was
see
an active agent. He
Luke
wasn't just some
Cage
guy
do
behind it.
any action
Yeah,
outside
yeah.
of just telling the Avengers what to
Well,
do.
in Captain America: Winter Soldier, you got some action. That whole car
I
chase scene
guess
was
I
pretty
barely
awesome.
remember it honestly.
Yeah. Well, I remember it was actually one of the better scenes in a Marvel movie. It was actually pretty cool. And it
Mm,
was like we finally got to see him actually do something. So you know what I mean?
right,
Like
right.
not just stand around and talk, but he actually was in a scene. There was action. It was intense. It was pretty. It was good. But yeah, I agree. It goes beyond just the race swapping. It's just like with Black Panther, right? There's no race swapping, but they did heavily downplay a lot of characteristics of the Black Panther character. That, like for example, he's on par with some of the most brilliant minds on the planet, right? They really didn't play that up very well in the movie. In fact, he kept being upstaged by his little sister, right? You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's like things like that. A lot of fans didn't like. I mean, I didn't like it either myself, because it's like, yeah, like this guy is supposed to be like super brilliant. Like he's a incredibly smart, brilliant person, and he should have been presented that way, right? So that was that's another nitpick from the sort of the pre end game, right? But we kind of let it go, right? Just because overall we were having a good time, right?
Hmm.
The ride was fun, but now it's like we went from the roller coaster ride where we just have the little ups and downs and the curves, and it just did the whole super mega drop, right? And we're
Yeah,
still dropping, right? It hasn't slowed up at all, and that's the problem. Is like it's just getting worse and worse and less interesting. So even when they do something right, like X-Men 97, where, oh, look, they struck the right tone, they got the right visual look, the character designs are very similar to the original series. They're picking up where the original leaves off, all that good stuff, right? That you expect fans of the original show as well as the comics
yeah,
would appreciate, and I think a lot of us do, but there's so much sort of bad faith now because of the mishandling with everything else. Even a Deadpool Wolverine, that's probably going to work because prior to the Disney acquisition of 21st Century, we already got a couple of Deadpool movies that were really fun, funny, and
right.
entertaining, right? And it held to the spirit of the character, right? Held to somewhat to the source material, not exactly, obviously, but it was still very well done, right? Great casting with Ryan, right? I mean, I mean, the irony of him doing it prior, right? But it's like it worked, and so there's a lot of good faith built up already with that property, and
Yeah,
then now that Disney has a hold of it, we'll see. You know, we'll see, right? We'll see.
yeah.
I mean, so far from the trailer, it actually looks fun. You know, it looks pretty good. They got Hugh
You talking about?
Jackman back, and
Oh
he
yeah,
he's got the OG suit, which a lot of people were, a lot of fans were like, "Why didn't you just do that?" That was one of the biggest critiques I remember from
the
the
original X Men
Fox,
series, the
yeah,
movies.
the Fox movies, where they had these like slick black
Hmm.
jumpsuits or whatever. It was kind of like, bro, what happened to the costumes? Like, why didn't they do the X costumes? Why didn't they do? Where's Wolverine's? It's
Hmm.
like, and they were like, oh, they kind of downplayed it, where it's like, oh, it would have been silly or whatever. And it's like, no, bro, like that's what we want.
Yeah,
It's like, but it goes back to the idea. A lot of people just never took comics very seriously as good as serious and good storytelling. Even superhero comics have very good, very compelling.
yeah.
Uh, storytelling, and it really shouldn't be diminished or dismissed. And hopefully,
Well, I think a
that's
big part of
changed.
it is,
No, go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, I mean, a big part of that is because I think comic books back then, and maybe it still is. I don't really know. But definitely for sure, back in the day, comic books were still treated as kids media. So the idea is, oh, we have to make this look more mature. So yeah, they can't wear the yellow blue costumes. They got to wear all black.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
got to look
that's
cool
very
and
good point.
edgy.
Yeah,
But that's kind of why I appreciate the what's it called, the Sam Raimi movies, the Spider Man movies, because it tried so hard to be a comic book, you know,
yeah, yeah,
and like it didn't, like, obviously the tone was serious, but like it never took away from, like, yeah, this is a comic book movie, right? Even the
yeah.
editing
That's
style of the
that's a very
original
good
movie
point. Yeah, I mean, Sam
leaned
Raimi
into
struck the right tone. It felt like Spider Man.
yeah.
He looked. I think there was some criticism of Tobey Maguire's casting, right?
Well, yeah,
Uh,
because he didn't. I guess I didn't see it at the time because I was like a kid, but yeah, he didn't look like a teenager. But
yeah, yeah,
when I'm a kid,
exactly.
all teenagers look like adults, so I didn't
Well, that's
care.
true,
But
but
I
not only
understand.
that, but it was like just the idea of I guess his this type of actor who you know you didn't see him as this comic book movie actor, right? You saw him as this dramatic actor, and but he came in. I think he did a great job. I think he
Yeah,
nailed Peter Parker very well.
yeah. I was about to
Um,
say, yeah,
so it's one of my favorite iterations big screen iterations of Spider-Man, even with the more recent um, movies, from Disney, which
Mm.
did well, and they are decent movies. But compared to Sam Raimi's version, in my opinion, especially the first two,
I will say the first two, yeah.
yeah, it's like there's to me, it's hands down they're superior. They're superior movies. They just handle the whole mythos of Spider-Man very well. And my,
Hmm.
my biggest complaint is one thing I appreciate about Sam. Now that we're talking about it, is the fact that he allowed Peter Parker to grow up. Right,
Yeah,
he started in high school, right,
yeah,
and he graduates and everything,
yeah.
and
Second
goes to
movie is in
college.
college.
Yeah, and then right now he's in college. He's trying to balance college life, and even in the third one, it was kind of like, okay, maybe he's in his third or fourth year of college, getting ready to graduate,
Mm.
and he's thinking about marriage and all this kind of stuff. It's like I like that, And
Hmm.
while obviously there's um, fair critiques of the third one, and because too many villains, all that stuff. It's still like, wow, he's allowing this character to grow, right? To become more. Because in the comics, he does, right? He grows up,
Hmm.
he becomes a full grown man, he gets married, all these things, right? He has all these adventures and all over the place in space, even, right? And it's like, and he becomes a leader. He becomes, he's very brilliant. All these different, there's a series, one of my favorites, Jonathan Hickman's. Fantastic Four, right? Spider Man is part of that group. He becomes
Okay.
part of the Fantastic Four for a while. And, it's like all that could have happened in the movies if we would have just kept let it go, and let it flow out, from the source material. But they decided to reboot it. And look, I like Andrew Garfield, but I think he made a great Spider Man, not a great Peter
Yeah,
Parker.
yeah.
Tobey Maguire, I think, was a great both, in my opinion. Some would
I
say the
think I
opposite.
think Andrew Garfield was a better Spider-Man. I think Tobey Maguire was better Peter Parker.
Yeah, he was definitely a better Peter Parker for sure. But I think he got both right. I
Well, it's not
really do.
that
I really
Tim
do.
Spider-Man was bad. It's just Spider-Man. At least when he wears the mask, he's a lot more.
Well, he feels like Spider Man. He's
Well,
got
it's not just that.
quips and
Yeah, like
and,
he's kind of a jokester and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
That
You
and
know what I
that
mean?
was that. It was. They
They
didn't
didn't
really.
really play
They
up that
didn't
part
play
with
it
him.
up that much. That's true with
No.
Sam Raimi's. Although he did do it though. So, but yeah, I agree. And it just I think that's why it didn't really go any further than the second film. Right? It just wasn't. I still think
Yeah.
general audiences were really. And plus, once
Well,
again,
I think
like,
the writing hurt it more so than
yeah, the
Andrew
writing.
Garfield. I think Andrew Garfield was great. I just think the movie
Yeah, his
was,
casting was good.
yeah.
I think it's really not just the writing,
Especially
but the
the
directing.
particularly the second movie. I liked the first Spectacular Spider-Man. I didn't like the second one all that
Yeah,
much.
I really did like the second one. That's true. It was just all over the place. But
Hmm.
yeah, I just but once again they decided, oh, we're gonna start over, and he's gonna be in
Yeah.
high school, and he's gonna it's like, oh my god, let Spider Man grow up, let him let him go beyond high school. And so even now with Disney's version, right? It's kind of like, okay, and uh, it was the first one was solid. It was good. They still did the race swapping and everything, and
Oh
but
yeah.
overall, it was still a good story. I give them that. They still told a good story, and but it's like after a while, I think what happens is people are tired of mediocre and meh, and like it's acceptable,
Yeah.
acceptable. Put the little barcode stamp, acceptable, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah, we don't want we want exceptional. We want great. We want fun and moving and inspiring and epic. And we're not getting that anymore. We're getting meh. We're getting Madam Web, Madam Meh, right?
Yeah.
We're getting the Mevils, right? Like it's and that's even not even meh. That's like I don't even know how to quantify that movie. The Marvels is just I don't even know. It's like
Well, I
who
didn't
does
watch it,
this?
so I was.
Yeah, I watched it. I was like, let me just see if I'm missing something, right? And
You weren't missing anything.
I was not missing anything. I was missing a headache, so thanks for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just and Nick Fury is just worse in that. It's like who are you making this movie for? And that's the problem. So you're definitely not making it for me or
Yeah.
for any general audience. You're making it for like you know uh, grandmas in there. You're making it for Nana while she's babysitting her 3-year old grandchildren, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
kids, let's watch the superheroes on
Yeah.
the Disney Plus box, and
Hmm.
and it's just stuff happening, and they don't know, they don't care, they just see lights and special effects, right?
Hmm.
And oh, look at the pretty lady, okay, and that's it. And Nana doesn't, she's not a Marvel fan.
Right.
She just says, "Oh, the kids like those superhero stuff."
Oh, they're quiet. Yeah.
Keep them quiet for an hour and a half. That's all. It's like that's who they're making it for. I don't know. I don't know. That's my best guess. They're not making it for just a general audience of
Yeah.
people who happen to like science fiction or superheroes or both, right?
Hmm.
Or just adventure, right? Like but all that wrapped around good storytelling, right? And so yeah, it's kind of crazy, but yeah, X-Men is you know not doing very well, unfortunately. So we'll see, you know, as the coming weeks and months if that gets cleaned up or you know uh, changed. But according to the Twitter post, um, it's not even like outperforming the Miss Marvel series on Disney Plus,
That's
which
that's
you know
worrying.
that's bad. Yeah, was not a great series. I mean, and look, the young lady that played Miss Marvel, she seems like a sweet young lady.
Well, yeah, it's not
Yeah,
the actor's
no,
fault. It's just
yes,
the
no
show
fight,
is just
but
bad.
everything, yeah, every critique
Yeah, this isn't personal. Like it's just
yeah, we're
the
putting on
the
Disney.
yeah.
Where it's not to the actors or
Nah.
actresses. It's really to the writers and the executives and the producers and the people that are
Yeah.
making these decisions
Mm,
to produce this content in the way that they're doing it. That's really more that we're leveraging it too. But the actors and actresses, look, you got to work. You know,
yeah.
um, you don't get to choose. Sometimes you don't get to choose your parts in a sense that you can just say no just because it happens to be race swapped or it happens to
Hmm.
be a bad. A lot of
Or
times
just out of character.
you don't know it's a bad movie. Like a lot of actors and actresses, they don't know until they're watching it in the in the editing room or in the theaters even, right?
Yeah.
They don't know because they don't know how it's going to be put together. Like a good example is the woman that played Thelma on Good Time, the original Good Time show, right?
Right.
She came out once they released the trailer and everything. She came out and she was like, "Look, I did a part. I had a few lines. You know." But she's like,
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to come out this way or look this way. It's like she doesn't have control over
Yeah.
that, right? She's an actress, and they said, "Hey, we want you to say these lines. Say it this way. That's it, right?" And who knows if she even got to see any of the art as reference or anything, right? So, um, and that's just how it works. Like that's part of the process. You don't know. So yeah, we're not trying to bash this young lady or anything like that. Um, you know, we're just saying, yeah, the show wasn't as good as it probably could have been or even should have been had they chosen to handle it differently, right? And tell a different type of storytelling, and basically, in my opinion, tell a better story, right? Tell a story that has a broad appeal, right? Versus one that seems to be singular and kind of very narrow, right? Which it's like, how is that going to appeal to a general audience if your story is about this one singular kind of ideology or this thing, that doesn't resonate with general audiences? It's like it doesn't make sense, right? At least from our perspective. From theirs, it makes perfect sense because their goal, in my opinion, their goal isn't to make money. The goal is to get their message out. You know, like that's it. It's like it's no different than you know, uh, old school preachers who used to go in the corners and just shout out the gospel, and they didn't care about presentation. They just wanted you to hear them. You know, that was it.
Yeah,
So they're gonna shout it out, scream it out. You know, and that's it. Repent. That's all it is. They're not thinking about like how can I phrase my words in a way that will resonate. Yes, no, they're just gonna tell you the truth, right? Tell you what they believe is the truth, and hope you hear it. And that's kind of what's happening here. Is it's like it just has to be
yeah,
in there, and get out there, right? Um, and it has to be obvious. Why? Because that's how they see it. They just want to make sure you see it. This is the message, you know. So it's not about making money or anything like that. They're not trying to appeal to a broad audience. So um, why, like I said, why they, it's a myriad of reasons. I'm sure. So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think X Men '97 will do better once Disney syndicates it and puts it out on like cable or some of these other free streaming apps.
possibly. Yeah. Well,
Where
I wonder if actually probably not, because I was thinking because Cartoon Network is although I know that's not Disney, but the recently Me TV. You ever heard of that one?
yeah.
So they're basically they're starting their own uh,
Oh yeah, the
section.
old
Yeah,
cartoons,
they're basically starting their own Cartoon
like
Network, and
classic.
it's going to be
Yeah,
what
there's
Cartoon Network originally was
well, they're
before.
no, they're creating their own boomerang. See, Cartoon Network started off with the OD cartoons, then they
I
started
know.
their own original
Yeah,
content,
and
and
then that's when they made Boomerang. Yeah,
the oldies. Then they realized, well, let's separate our original stuff from the oldie stuff, and they
yeah,
created Boomerang.
yeah. I remember. Yeah,
And Boomerang was just for classic cartoons, right? And eventually classic TV. And then that kind of went the way of the dinosaur for whatever reason.
yeah,
So now it looks like they're kind of they're reincarnating Boomerang
yeah. Me TV tunes
specifically
forever.
for classic animation, which is nice. I love that. So I look forward to indulging in that because so I'm sure it's going to have a lot of my favorites.
Well, I bring it up just because I wonder if I guess Disney doesn't need to do that. I mean, I wonder if they'll try to do that with their stuff
You mean
because
similar format where they take their classic Disney stuff
yeah,
and roll it into something
since
else?
they know
I don't
that
think
more.
so. I don't think so. And this is why. This is why I don't think so. Because if Disney Plus is failing, then rolling everything into something like their classic stuff into something else, I'm not sure if that's going to help. I think what will help, because I don't think people will be willing to pay for it.
Will help
But
us if they
but
make good stuff.
well, yeah, that can help a lot. But
Yeah.
also if they just syndicate their content and just
Mm,
license it out to Netflix, to Amazon, to
yeah.
Freevee and Tubi, and all these. They already have Hulu. Just put it on Hulu.
Mm,
Certain titles obviously. So, and I'm saying something like X Men '97 will probably do well in a on a different app. Either they contract with I don't know. It could be Cartoon Network. I doubt it though.
yeah.
But if they do like I said, Freevee or Pluto or some of these other free streamers that are driven by advertising, right? And they just put it under and then what they can do is they can partner it with the original series. They can do a bundle and just pack and say, "Hey, here's the original series. Here's the rebooted one. Here, you can take them both. and run them and stream them, and put ads and all that kind of stuff. And I think there it will flourish and do well because then people aren't paying for Disney Plus.
Right.
You understand? They're like, oh, I already have Freeview, or I have Pluto, or I have Tubi, right? I'll just watch them on there. And I think that's where it could do well if they just start doing with a lot of their stuff that people actually like. Um, just get it out of distance it from the Disney brand for now, and I think it would probably fare better than because I just think that's part of the problem is the brand is damaged and the
Yeah.
app itself just it's not something that um, it's just not something that's worth paying for anymore. You know, you know what I mean? Like they have the Simpsons. It's kind of like okay, you know.
Yeah, but people still watching The Simpsons? That's the thing.
Well, yeah, people are still watching it, but
Not as much as they
are they
used
going to
to.
pay for Disney Plus to watch it? No,
No.
probably not. They'll just go wherever it's still being syndicated and just watch the reruns.
Yeah.
Like Seinfeld, right? It's on Netflix, which is great, but it's like, are you gonna pay for Netflix just to watch Seinfeld?
So watch Seinfeld. No.
Probably not. You'll it's still syndicated on free channels in various markets, right? Like here in LA, it's still syndicated on Channel 13. So
Yeah.
it comes on at like 10 o'clock or something, right? So
Yeah.
it's like I just watch it, watch what I mean, watch it on TV, like
Yeah.
unless you just like I could see it if you're a fan or if you're someone who like I love Seinfeld. Seinfeld's great.
Mhm.
I can binge watch Seinfeld, right? I think I've seen every episode, so like it being on Netflix is great for like a lazy day and you don't know what to watch.
Yeah.
That's a great go to because you're already
Yeah, but there's also episodes on YouTube. So
Yes,
it's
this
like,
is true. There's
so
episodes and
it's
clips and
like people
so
are uploading compilations and stuff like that. So it's
yep,
like,
that's exactly especially hardcore fans, right? Like they're
yeah.
gonna do that, and so it's like
So
yeah,
yeah, no, you don't need.
I don't see it
Yeah.
being something that I don't think
Yeah.
Disney Plus is gonna. I think they're gonna go the way of the DC streaming app,
The
which
what?
DC. Remember they came out
Oh
with
yeah, that's
an app
right.
for like a hot minute where they had you could access comics and watch all your favorite DC
Yeah,
animated
that's how I
shows.
watched Batman Brave and the Bold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it was kind of great. I mean, I'm a DC fan, so I was like, oh, this is
Hmm.
awesome, right? But after a while, after about a month or two, I'm like, yeah, this isn't worth it. Like, because it's kind of that's all there is. And they try
Right.
to do some original content. Like, they put what was, oh man, I can't, Swamp Thing. I think they tried to air
Okay.
Swamp Thing on there, but it just wasn't, you know, it just didn't resonate. I think they just couldn't get enough. And then it got rolled into HBO Max or whatever, right?
Mm.
And so then they had it on their app, which was nice because now you have that. Plus, and they had like a lot of studio Ghibli productions,
Okay.
So quite a few anime. It was like okay, this is a nice mix. That was okay for a while,
Yeah.
but same thing. It's kind of like after a while, it just doesn't have that quote unquote Netflix appeal, right? So it just didn't last, and so now now we have Max, right?
Yep.
And even that I don't think this. I think eventually these companies like Max, like I said, Disney. I think maybe even Paramount. They have their own streaming. They're probably just going to go back to an old model of just licensing out their content to other outlets like these free platforms, and it's becomes advertiser driven, right? And and then maybe there'll be like premium stuff like movies, like first release of this popular movie in
Can't
theater.
wait for cable too.
Yeah, I mean it kind of will be cable too, but maybe it'll be a better
Super Cable
because
2 Turbo. Yeah.
it's you're not paying for the apps up front. You just pay for a premium tier, meaning no commercials
Yeah, I mean, like based on
or
what
access
YouTube
to
does.
Yeah, or access to like movies that aren't available anywhere
Yeah.
else, right? You know, that you may happen to be a fan of, right? If you're a fan of like horror, classic horror movies, and they can't be found anywhere else, you know, like Universal has a lot of those horror movies, right? The
Hmm.
classics that we love. If they said, "Look, Freebie, you can have a horror channel and have exclusive access to all of our horror library. It's not available anywhere else, right? All these classics, and then you make that a premium tier to those who love classic horror. Then maybe you mix that in with more modern horror, and you see what I mean. Like, and it's
Hmm.
like as long as it's scarce, it could work,
Right.
right? But if it's not scarce, and that's part of the problem now, is it's not scarce unless it's brand new content, right? Then it
Right.
becomes scarce. Then yeah, people aren't going to pay for it. So, but I do think that's the future. Um, but speaking of Hollywood and its future, you know, they're getting into, you know, we've seen this with Sonic the Hedgehog, right? And a few others, Halo series.
Well,
I think that's on Paramount.
video
Video
game movies
video
are.
game adaptations is on an uptick, right? It's
Oh yeah.
there's an article on Bloomberg saying it's the new superhero movies, right? The way Marvel was for over 2 decades. Now Hollywood's targeting video game industry,
Yeah.
and they're saying it like it's brand new. It's
It's
not.
not. I
Not
mean,
new.
video game movies have been around since the '90s.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's nothing new. The difference is definitely access to better production quality, right?
I
And
guess.
two, and we've seen this with Sonic, thanks to the interwebs, right?
Oh yeah.
There's a greater gatekeeping happening with the fans. Like when they released that first Sonic trailer,
Oh yeah. I
we
was. Yeah.
saw that ridiculous grill he had, right? The
Yeah.
design.
Nobody was happy.
Nobody was happy. They were like, what is this trash, right?"
Yeah.
And what happened though? They were
Oh,
like,
they
"Oh,
fixed
sorry
it.
guys," and
Yeah.
they pulled it. And they went. They were like, "Please excuse our misstep. We're gonna work hard to fix it, right?" And about a month or two later, boom, and we're like, "Yo, this looks dope," right?
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen in the video game industry going forward with among the fans when they're adapting your favorite video game. And I said this in response to the article. I think I posted on Twitter, but it's like you got to be the gatekeepers. I think that's the mistake that was made with the run with Marvel, Disney, and even DC. Right?
Mhm.
Is that the fans? I think some of the fans were dismissive. Like, and I'm talking about comic book fans. I think a lot of them were just kind of like whatever, right?
Mhm.
Because adapting comic books isn't new, right? It's been going on since before I was born.
Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and most of the shows I loved were shows adapted from comics like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Super Friends, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, you know, it's like it's nothing new, but the difference is what happened in the last couple of decades is these production companies, these studios veered off course from the source material, right?
Well, that's
And
what I was gonna say. Is I feel like the bigger issue is once again same thing with the comic book movies is they don't take video games. And when I say they, I mean I guess if you want to call it Hollywood, they don't take video games seriously.
right,
So they it's only until recently when video games started out. I feel like video games started outperforming movies in terms of sales that uh, the stuff was taken more seriously. Because like in the '90s, you had a whole bunch of video game movies, but most of them sucked. And a lot of it, the main thing is they kept changing stuff
yeah.
from the movie. Like the Super Mario Brothers movie
Yeah,
did not look like
that's
Super
the
Mario Brothers.
quintessential example of
You know,
how Hollywood can destroy a beloved IP like
yeah.
this
And it's
Mario
not
Bros.
just
movie.
Mario Brothers. It's
No, it's not. But that's just like that's
oh yeah,
the
that's the
poster
main
boy.
that one and the Street Fighter movie. The Street
Yes,
Fighter movie. I
Fighter.
just saw that
Yeah,
recently.
that's true.
Such a dumb. Like I had fun
It's-
watching it, but the only saving grace was like the only accurate thing to the game was M Bison.
yes,
Like,
that's right.
and that's because M Bison acted like a dick. I forgot the actor's name. He was such a good actor. Rest in peace. But he actually like acted like a dictator, and they gave him some of the hardest lines.
Yeah, it was like spot on, right? And
Yeah,
but that's it. That's all they gave us, right? And that was the problem. They didn't take it
like the
seriously enough.
only accurate movie we got, and lo and behold, it's the most revered one out of all those '90s movies. Is the original Mortal Kombat movie?
Yeah, Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it gave
right.
us everyone,
Yeah,
everyone loves
it
Mortal.
was
The
even
first
though
one,
it's and look, let's be honest, it's not a great production, right?
sure,
Production
but
quality,
they looked like
but
the video game.
yeah, everybody looked like their video game
Yeah.
counterparts. They acted like what we
Hmm.
expected, and
Yeah.
it was fun. And they did a lot of the things from the moves from the video. I mean, it was well done, right? And I think
Raul Julia, that was the actor's name who played
okay,
Ed Bison.
yeah, it's like they respected it enough at least to give us what we wanted to see, and that's what it's going to take going forward. Is look. There's no excuse like when it comes to visual fidelity. There's no
Hmm.
excuse anymore. Like you
Yeah.
have, it's like the Bionic Man. We have the technology,
Oh
right?
yeah.
We can
Like
we
the
can
the
we can make it. It's the visual aesthetic is not an excuse.
yeah,
It's like now you have to say, can we take this seriously? Like, can we take this property and really delve into its lore especially if it's something that's been around for a good while, right? A good decade or so, right?
yeah,
It's like, can we dig in and really make it something great that
yeah.
will appeal to a broad audience that aren't gamers, right? But will satisfy actual gaming fans out there, like
Well,
the people
the
that
new
are.
Super Mario Brothers movie proved that you could have an entire film that looks just like the video game, and people will love it.
Right, people
So
will love it.
same
Yeah,
thing with what's it, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie? People love
yeah.
that stuff.
Although I don't think it did that well. I think there was some criticism with because the Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, is there
I
even
heard it.
a real story per se? Like,
Yeah, there is.
but
There's
it's
a very large story actually,
yeah, but
but
I don't know the way it's presented in the movie. I don't know. Maybe it's a product of not adhering to the source as well as they should have. Because I know it had some criticism because it was kind of like, it was kind of meh. Like it just came and went. You know.
yeah, I mean, I don't like it. Definitely wasn't a scary movie, but no, I mean, there was a lot of stuff they were trying to cram. I feel like there were a lot of plot points they were trying to cram into one movie,
Yeah, and maybe that's
as
what it
opposed
is.
to
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like they're doing it. And we're seeing just slow and steady rise in adapting video games, and like Fallout recently.
oh yeah, yeah.
Once again,
That's pretty fun.
well done. I mean, it's made me interested in the game. I've never played the game. I've only watched cutscenes,
Yeah,
and because I'm a weird person. I like watching video game cutscene stories, so you know I'm like really into that.
yeah,
But yeah, but Fallout, the series it's really good. It's well acted. It's well scripted. Um, and from what I've seen and from hearing from actual video game fans who've played it, they're like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's not. They have some nitpicks, but overall, yeah, they're like it does well, adhering to the tone of the game and the
but
the mythos and
and then that's the other thing. The movie or the show, right, makes you interested in playing the video game, right?
yeah, it does. Yeah.
None of the comic book movies, right, make you
Made you want to
interested
go watch. Yeah.
in
Well,
reading the
yeah.
comic
I
books.
mean, we
They,
could
they
al-
just
we'll
don't.
we'll see. We got to look at some numbers because I think for young, like maybe very young people who watch those movies, they'll get into the comics. But
I yeah,
the problem isn't that it didn't make you want to read comics. The problem is once you went to read the comics themselves were garbage because the comic book industry itself were putting out a lot of just bad stories, bad
sure,
representation of the OG characters, and it just didn't have that appeal to readers, to new readers or old readers.
sure,
And
but like I've talked to a lot of like younger people, like kids and stuff like that, and like they only really know Spider Man from the movies. They don't
yeah,
really
yeah.
they don't
See,
know
that's funny.
about what I'm
Maybe
saying?
let's see. Maybe this is an argument for why they
Because
should have
look,
did everything animated. Because speaking from my experience, right, when I was a kid, right,
hmm
One of the first superhero shows I watched was the '60s Spider-Man series. Right,
Oh
it was
yeah,
in
yeah.
syndication in the '70s, and I watched it. It was probably early '80s. I was probably like 10, 9 or 10, and I'm watching this, and I'm going, "Wow, this is pretty cool." Right, and then at the end, end title card says, find out more about Spider-Man and
Yeah.
other Marvel characters at your local library, whatever. Right, and I was like, "Oh, so I can find this comic book." Because to me, at that time, a comic was a comic strip in a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, there was a Spider-Man comic there too. That's what introduced me to Spider-Man.
No.
So when I saw the show, saw it airing, I was like, "Oh, that's that Spider-Man guy that I
Mm.
read in the comic strip, right?" And
Right.
so then that made me go, "Well, I'm gonna go to the library and find out more about this Spider-Man guy."
Right.
Right? Go to the library. I asked him, "Where's the comic section?" The lady pointed, and it was just a few feet behind me, and it was on those little rotating stands, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I grabbed a few comics and checked them out, and I read them,
Yeah.
and they were awesome. They were great. And so it's like it did make me interested in comics. Watching, like, I had watched Super Friends up to that point, but Super Friends never made me want to go read a DC comic.
But yeah, but that's. I feel like there's
I didn't
that.
even realize they were comic characters. That's how because there was nothing in there that, at least that I paid attention to, that told me
Mhm.
that, right? But in that Spider-Man show, for some reason, it looked like a comic book. It looked like a moving comic book. That's number one. But two, like I said, that end title card, it's like, oh, it's a comic book.
Yeah.
What's a comic
Well,
book?
it's
Let
not
me check
even
it out.
just that they don't advertise it, but like think about how much they changed the characters
Yeah, right.
from the movie to the comic. Like I went to go read Batman and Superman comics because I was introduced to Batman and Superman through the cartoon, the Max Fleischer cartoon, and then with Batman, it was
Yeah,
the
that's
animated
right. Yeah,
series. And I was like, oh, well, this looks like the shows I watch, right? You can't really, there's that disconnect with the current Marvel movies and comics because most of the Marvel movie characters don't look anything like their comic book counterparts. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Saying
Hmm.
Spider Man and the Hulk and maybe Iron Man. So there's a huge disconnect, right?
Yeah,
Like just look at like you know just anime and manga. Usually, like most anime is supposed to be a commercial for the manga, right? Like even like the kids that I've talked to, I used to work at a school. They had they had manga. They had
hmm,
and they saw the anime. And they had but they also had the books. So
yeah,
they participated in both. That there's nobody, no kids had actual American comic books at the schools. None of them at all. And it's it sucks, but it's like yeah, because they don't. The movies don't make you care about the comic books because they're so radically
yeah,
different.
yeah.
Even with the old cartoons, like I said, the old cartoons they look like the comic book characters. So like if I'm at a bookstore or the library, I'm like, oh hey, that's Batman from the TV show, you know,
Right, right.
you know. But if I go and for example, look at maybe an Avengers comic book, I'm like, who is this purple dude? Oh, that's supposed to be Hawkeye. I couldn't tell. You know what I mean?
Right, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Like when I witnessed, the Spider-Man animated show, you're right. When I went to the comic book, it looked just like Spider-Man. Like there
Yeah.
was no deviation from the original
Hmm.
comic book design. So and like I said, I
Like
saw him first
imagine if they changed the
in the
Spider.
newspaper strip, and the
Hmm.
same thing. Like there was no huge variation. Right, it was like, oh yeah, that's the same guy.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's a very good point.
And
Uh,
obviously, I mean, imagine if they had changed Spider Man's outfit for some reason to make it look cooler. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't
right, right. You go,
like
well,
all
is
that's
that the same guy?
purposeful. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Yeah.
that's a very good point. Yeah. That's an excellent point actually, because once again, that's one of the big complaints of a lot of fans
Yeah.
is, hey, you guys changed them a little too much, right? Like, you know, it's like
Hmm.
they still need to look like the original characters, right? Or else, like, it's almost like, what are you really trying to accomplish here? If you're buying a comic book company, and all of its IP. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
and you're gonna put it all to screen, whether small screen or the big screen. Um, but you completely change those characters to make them unrecognizable.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you trying to do? Like, what's the point? You know,
Yeah.
like, are you trying to get them to get people to read more comics, or
Right.
maybe you don't care? I don't know. And I agree with that. And maybe
And it's
this
the
is a
same
mix
thing for
of those
games.
things. Yeah,
So
maybe they just, it's something that, when you get to the production side, no one is thinking about or cares about. They're just like, how can we just make a movie that will make money, right? And really, when you're talking about Disney, you're talking about how do we get them to the theme parks. You're not even talking about selling books.
I
You
guess,
understand? You're
yeah.
talking about how we're going to sell toys, how we're going to get them to the theme park.
But they've made the theme park so expensive to where most average people won't
Well,
put
yeah,
down.
that's the conundrum,
At
right?
least the Disney World. I don't know about Disneyland here in California, but I know Disney World a trip to it is super expensive.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
it's nuts. But
it's
yeah, with the video game movies adaptations, they just have to stop being afraid. Afraid is the wrong word, but they gotta stop. You know, being afraid to make the video game adaptation look like the video game. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So,
That's the thing though. Like I said, nowadays that's not even an excuse anymore. Like
mhm,
like back in the '90s, you could say, well, look, we couldn't do all this, pipes and portals and Goombas and all this,
they should have
what I
made
mean? Like we
should
couldn't
just
do
made
all
it
these things.
animated. Honestly,
Um, I know, and it was an animated show, right? So
and there was an animated
right, it
show.
was an animated show. And that's what I'm saying. So it should have just been animated.
uh,
That's always my contention. I'm just an animation person, but yeah, it's like now there's no excuse, right? You can make all that. Like they could have made a quote unquote live action Super Mario Brothers, you know, and it with the same visual fidelity as the game, so far as like the world and and it could have cast live actors, right, to act, and it probably would have been could have been just as good, maybe, right? I,
mhm,
I I appreciate that it was animated. I'm happy they did that instead of making it live action. So, but
yeah,
they could have though, right? Because the technology is advanced enough where yeah, you can get away with that. You can do these crazy things and portals and all this kind of stuff. Have weird creatures interact with humans and right. Um, so, but they chose animation, and I think that was smart um, to do that because it creates a consistent visual aesthetic and fidelity, right? And particularly because of the property itself, right? It is a family friendly property, right? Which means it appeals to young people as well as older. So it's a happy medium to be in animation. It's a happy, resolution or compromise, however you want to look at it. And to me, I think it's more liberating because you can just do more with animation.
yeah.
You know,
Same thing. So prove my point, right? Shout out to Afrosexual Jukebox. He was like, "Yeah, just watched Kaiju number 8. It's a new anime." Because I knew it was a manga first, and the show's storytelling was hooking. So yeah,
yeah,
watched the manga, went to go watch the anime, vice versa. It's all connected. I forget there's a term for it. Excuse me, for like
mhm,
media, like a multimedia, like a story that's it's a little it's a little different,
yeah,
but it goes into it's like a term for storytelling, like a story that's being told through multiple forms of media. And while it's not exactly the same as it, but it's like both go hand in hand, for
yeah,
anime and manga. Like
yeah.
you
That's true.
can just watch the anime or you can just read the manga, but most people they
Yeah,
do
and
both because like
yeah,
if the anime comes out, they're like, oh, I want to see my favorite
yeah.
manga
You want to see
panels
it
in
move?
motion,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, and
And if
that's
you're an
that's the
anime
thing,
watcher,
though.
you're
That's
like,
the
oh, well, I
distinction,
want to
right?
see What was that?
I said that's the distinction though, is there's a virtual one to one with manga and
Usually, yeah.
anime. Like it's it's like it's uncanny when you think about it, because it shows that, and that goes into another thing I wanted to bring up, which is the idea of superhero fatigue and all this foolishness. It's like that doesn't exist. There's no
No,
superhero fatigue, right? The
nobody
problem
is.
is production companies and studios are creating bad entertainment. They're just creating awful movies,
Yeah,
and anime and manga are proof of that, because what they're doing is exactly what we've been demanding
yeah,
Disney and DC and these others do, which is, why don't you just adapt the source material as it's presented,
yeah,
right? Good, bad, or indifferent. Sure, you make modifications where you need to, but for the most part, just adapt it how we all remember it in the comics.
yeah.
And that's what's happened with manga, right? For the most part, right? Like you can see what, maybe 90% one to one.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's uncanny, and I love it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful, and I'm sure the fans appreciate it,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Because it's like, why
even
wouldn't
in
you
the Western
deviate?
media, Invincible shows like Invincible and The Boys are
Yeah, it's good
proof that
examples of doing it right.
there's
Yeah,
no superhero fatigue because people love
yeah,
those shows.
that's exactly
I mean,
right.
even
Like,
with all their like, I'm not a big fan of The Boys, but I was more
all
interested
the
in The
hyper
Boys.
violence and yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, I agree. It's like it shows that they do love it. My Hero Academia, right? Huge over here as well as in Japan, right?
yeah.
Like people aren't fatigued by
No,
superheroes. They're
nobody's fatigued
fatigued
by superheroes.
by garbage entertainment. They're fatigued by vapid race swaps and gender swaps that have no meaning or substance to it. They're just and general audiences are starting to respond. Like first it was the hardcore fans. Now general audiences are realizing this stuff just isn't appealing. But this anime stuff is great. And
Yeah,
that's what's happening. Like, this stuff I don't like over here, this Hollywood stuff, but over there, this anime stuff is really cool. And that's all they're seeing. They're just going, well, I just like this because it's good,
yeah,
right? Like that's it. It's not about oh, maybe we need to change up our structure, or maybe we need to it's like, no, just tell good stories.
yeah,
Just tell good stories, put them out there, and people will respond. They'll indulge in it. And anime and manga, they when they get adapted by, and it's the same similar process. They're being adapted by huge corporations, right? Toei and all this stuff. They're billion-dollar companies. It's not like they're these little small tiny little studios struggle. No, they're getting good money, right, for
hmm,
many of these productions. I can't speak for all of them, but they're being funded well to produce this anime. Maybe on the manga side you can argue, yeah, the artists are kind of struggling. At first maybe they struggle a bit, because they got to produce it, right? And many of them are writers and artists. They're not just writing, right? And so it takes time to build up an audience and all that stuff. But once that happens and it gets picked up by a studio who wants to finance it into an anime, it's like it's going to get its funding, right? And they produce for the most part beautiful work, right? And like I said, 90 to 95% one to one. It's like it can be done, right? It has nothing to do with like some kind of bloated process, or you know like it's. And the thing is, they used to do it, right? Hollywood in the West used to do it,
yeah,
right? Like I said, growing up, I watched Spider-Man, and yeah, there was always twists and different takes, and like Spider-Man and his amazing friends, right? It's like, well, that wasn't a comic, right?
no,
But it was a great show, and it was an excuse to bring in other characters with Spider-Man,
right.
right? And then even Firestorm, I don't even think she was an original comic book character. I believe she was made specifically for the show,
Oh, okay.
right? And she turned out to be a very popular character, very great. And she was one of my favorite characters.
I mean, that happens a lot too.
Yeah, with the Batman
Harley
animated
Quinn.
series, right? Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Uh,
but it's like they stayed true to the source material and to the tone that it struck and the mythos that
yeah,
surrounded those characters, where you can come in and go, okay, this is different from the comic, but they've stayed true to this character. Like I
Yeah.
recognize Batman, I recognize the Joker, I recognize these other Two Face, etc. Right? Because I read them in the comics. I recognize Spider Man. I knew who that Iceman guy is. This Firestorm character is different. It's new, but I'll give her a shot, right? Because everything else is working. There's still an Aunt May and all this good stuff, right? And it just worked, because you could tell we're the animators and the writers and the directors and the producers were having fun, and they weren't trying to inject some kind of, I don't even know, messaging, or they're just like, let's make something awesome, let's make something beautiful, let's make something that pulls that comic character out of the page and brings them into this world, right? This
Hmm.
moving world. And we got many decades of that prior to, I don't know, probably 2012 or so is when it really started to ramp up. Prior to that, we just got great stuff and good storytelling, right? Um, and now I don't even know, like, it's just all over the place, right? And it makes no sense, you know.
Like I said, a lot of it's ego, and a lot of it's because you always talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
people with, oh, I want to put my own artistic interpretation, whatever, and that's not always a bad
Well,
thing.
yeah,
But
that's not inherently
your
bad.
artistic interpretation isn't more important than what the
But not
fans
only that,
want to
but
say.
it goes beyond. It's like it's ego, and it's not even about an artistic interpretation. It's about, I have to yell this ideology at the top of my
Well,
lungs.
well, I'm not even just talking about that. I'm also talking about, like, just as an example, the last example, the Halo show.
Yeah,
Like, a lot of people didn't like how Master Chief was portrayed because
yeah,
he didn't. He a talked too much, and
yeah.
two, they kept showing without his mask on. And part of the
Right.
mystique is that you don't know what he looks like. But the
Yeah,
actor was making an excuse. Oh, well, you can't really tell a good story when you can't see the
which is a lie.
protagonist's face.
Yeah.
Which, excuse me, Boba Fett,
Thank you.
Darth Vader, ironic, both Star Wars,
Right.
freaking
Yeah. But see,
Spider Man.
they did the same with the Mandalorian, right? They eventually let him take his helmet off and show his face. Why? Because Pedro Pascal probably said, "Well, I want them to see my face." They would, nobody
I
wants to see your
guess,
face,
but
bro. Nobody's asking. I'm serious. I'm watching the first season and I'm thinking, I don't care what he looks like. In fact, I like that I don't know what he looks like,
yeah, it's
because
part of the
he can be
mystery.
anybody.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the character, as it's being conveyed through the story, it makes him a more interesting and
Hmm.
mysterious character
V for
than if
Vendetta. That's what I was trying to think of.
D for Vendetta. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another good example. It's
So
like,
it's
and
like
that's what I'm
it's
saying.
such
It's
a
like, it's so ridiculous. But you're right, it is ego driven. I mean, that's that's a big part of Hollywood, unfortunately. And it's like, yeah, it's like you'll sacrifice the quality of the story.
it's like nobody's
You know,
asking for
yeah, no one was demanding to see the Mandalorian's face.
yeah.
In fact, if there were, you want to play that up for marketing purposes, right?
That's the
Like, what
thing. They
does he
played
look
it up
like? I don't know.
in like the finale of the first season where he
Yeah,
finally
something
took
like
it
build
off.
up to it or
It
something, right?
was
It's like
special, right? But
it was like
you don't
episode
have to
4.
take it off
Yeah,
every.
it was like so ridiculous. So that was really disappointing when they did that. I mean, overall, I enjoyed the first season or so. I think first 2 seasons, but yeah, that was disappointing that they let him take his
Yeah,
mask off. It's like, come on, man. And Halo, yeah, it's like, what the heck are you doing? That's like an actual thing in the video game, right? That we don't see his face.
yeah,
Like they even tease it a little bit, right? But
yeah.
it's like, come on, man. But yeah, like I said, they don't respect the source material, and they don't take it seriously enough to to at least learn about it. You know,
Yeah.
and we've learned that from some leaked videos and things from a lot of Disney executives and producers, etc. They don't care. They didn't bother to read the original comics and all that. Even Kathleen Kennedy, I think, was on record saying like, "Oh, there was nothing we can draw from, so we just had to figure things out with Star Wars. And it's like,
There was
what
nothing we
are
could
you
draw
talking
from.
about? There's like
There was
a whole,
no
there's
there was
little
no series of
libraries,
movies. There's no
not just
books.
movies. Yeah, there's
There's
comics,
no
magazines,
video
and
games.
novels. Yeah,
There's
it's like, get out of here, man. Like, these people, but they're either very very ignorant or they think we're
oh
very
man.
ignorant. One or the other.
We just couldn't. We didn't know how to make a Mario movie.
Yeah, we
If
just had
only
to.
there was a series of video games
Yeah,
spanning from
only there was some
1985.
kind of reference we could use. If only there was a
It's like
source material.
we didn't know how to build a proper Sonic world. If only there was a series of
Yeah,
comic
if
books.
only, if
That's the
only there was
longest running comic book series in history that could have sort of
yeah,
showed us how to build a proper
a
world with
world for
Sonic and
Sonic. Yeah,
animals.
it's like, come
But
on, man.
no, we got to put them in Florida
If
or
only there was a
California.
cartoon you could look
Yeah, boy, there was a good. Yeah,
at. Just like Justice League, the same thing. It's like, although a lot of people, a lot of comic fans liked it because it was reminiscent of the more darker tone of more recent Justice League comics, I guess. But
are you talking about the new movie?
no, the Zack Snyder stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry.
yeah,
So,
so we
but
didn't know
yeah,
what to draw from for Star Wars.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
I was like, bro,
I didn't even know she said
people
that.
are nuts. Yeah, these
I was
people
like,
are nuts. Man. It's like, what are you
oh
talking about?
man,
Yeah, it's crazy. So, I don't know, but um, yeah, um, video game fans, uh, be
yeah,
the
we're eating.
gatekeepers. Uh, yeah, be the gatekeepers and protect your beloved properties, old and new. You know, and creators, especially indie creators, because they're approaching some indie creators too, indie game
Yeah.
makers.
Well, I'll say this. People talk about you know we always refer to we refer to it as content now instead of media or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
But uh, some people, a lot of people, they'll say, oh, you know, just shut up and enjoy it. Let people enjoy whatever. And there's nothing wrong with having standards. If
That's right.
people are trying to make you feel guilty for having good standards, then they're not fans. They're not real fans. So
Well, they're. I would contend it's not even about being a fan. It's just about having common sense. You're supposed to have standards, and
no,
it's
yeah,
okay to have those standards and to demand that others meet those standards who are engaged with you in some way, right? Who, they choose to interact with you and they don't meet a certain standard. You have a right to say, well, then I won't interact with you, right? And
hmm
that's true in every facet of life, and it includes entertainment. If you're watching a movie or a series or whatever, and they start putting things in there that don't meet your standards, right? Or they're not doing things that would meet your standards, you have a right to disengage and say, well, I'm not going to give you my time, attention, or money. That's every person's right. It's like you're not. It's in. We're talking about entertainment, right? Entertainment is consumable and it's disposable. Unfortunately, much of it. There's some things there. There's some gems out there for sure
hmm
that are timeless. And but for the most part, entertainment is made to be consumed and disposed of, right? Uh, Unfortunately, and it's like, but so we have to, vie for the attention of our audience, and part of that is, attempting to give them what they want. Not what we think they should want, right? But what they actually want. You know, what is it? The customer is always right. That's a tried and true mantra, and it doesn't mean you can't do what you like, but
Yeah,
picture yourself.
I think people misinterpret that as you have to the. I think people misinterpret that phrase. Like I always see it as like if you're selling a car, right, and you know, and the customer, it's like a red car. And you have a customer who loves red is like, oh, that's a beautiful car. You're like, you're right. This is a great car. That's why you should buy it. But if you have a customer who's like, well, uh, my favorite color is blue. I don't really like this car. It's like, you're right. Blue cars are better. Here's a, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Like, here's a, you know what I'm saying? It
You,
has
you,
nothing to do with,
you
oh, well,
adapt to the interest and
you
taste
should,
of your customers. Yeah.
yeah, it has nothing to do with like betting to their every whim. It's like, oh, give me
No,
this car for free.
no,
It's
it's
like, no, I can't do
yeah,
that.
it's not
That's
about
good.
being unreasonable. It's simply when you're in business and you're trying to have you know clients, audiences, etc., engage with your content or use your product. It has to be something that they want
Hmm.
or that they need, right? And it's our job to convince them that this is something you should want, right? And it doesn't mean everybody's got to want it, right? Because some people aren't into certain things, right? They're not into
Yeah.
sci-fi or whatever,
Not
and that's
everything
fine.
doesn't have to be for everyone.
No, it doesn't. And but that doesn't mean that when you see something that is disingenuous or depraved, right, that you can't comment on it, that you can't point out like, hey, that's terrible, right? It's like I don't have to be a fan of something to comment about it, right?
Hmm.
To point out things, especially things that are probably need to be pointed out,
Yeah.
So we're not talking about like criticism necessarily, but yeah, it's like the studios, yeah, they it's like they don't really care about pleasing the audience, and they don't really care. They'll say they're trying to win over a new audience, but that's a lie. I really don't believe that. I believe what they're trying to do is indoctrinate a new audience for the most part, and I think that's their true agenda. And hopefully they'll just keep losing money, and they'll keep getting exposed, and more people will just reject it outright, and they'll take their kids and not allow them to consume a lot of this content, and bring them to the indie market where we are, where we're creating content that is for everyone, that is inspiring, fun, compelling, and it's not there to check boxes or anything. We're just trying to tell authentic stories uh, that will entertain you. So, and I think there's a lot of creators who are doing just that in the indie space when it comes to comics, when it comes to video games, when it comes to animation. Right, they're out there, and they're trying to win over an audience to support them, and they want to give you something that you want, something that you'll like, something that's memorable and that's worth engaging in, and that's a beautiful thing. So I definitely give the indie people a shot, because the mainstream, I honestly don't believe they care about you. I don't believe they're trying to do anything good for you. They're definitely not trying to entertain you, right? So I say reject them and go indie, you know. And thank God for the internet. Um, it's a few uh, clicks and taps on the keyboard away. Go on to Twitter, go on YouTube, just look for indie content, you know, and it's out there. So that's all I have for today. Gonna go ahead and end our broadcast. You got anything else you want to add?
Um, well, like I said, there's something wrong with having standards,
That's right.
even if it's video games
Yeah, I mean, seriously, man.
or movies.
we're gonna we're gonna keep watching this and see, you know, because a lot of industry people, from what I've seen, when they comment about this stuff, they, like I said, they dance around the obvious, right? Which is
Mm.
the whole DEI stuff, DEI funding, and the message being injected into everything. So, I mean, unless the video game itself was already like that, then hey, that's fair is fair, no problem. But you know, a lot of games aren't, you know, especially the more popular games that are out there. So we'll see, we'll see how it goes. I'm rooting for like Sonic. you know, I watched a couple of episodes of the Knuckles series just to see what it's
You
like.
you didn't have to.
Yeah, I didn't. I did, and I regret doing it. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't.
It was. I kind of feel like they're starting to veer off into the weeds. With the IP. Like it's because I don't understand what the show is for. I guess very young kids will like it, maybe, and that's a big
I
maybe
guess.
because
I mean,
it's really not much there, not much
here's the
substance.
thing. Normally, when you want to appeal, like back in the day, if you wanted to appeal to a kid, like if they did that, they would just pair the popular character. Like if this is the '90s movies, they would have paired Knuckles with a kid. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
right.
Like it would have been, oh, this
That's
kid
the
meets
part.
Knuckles and he
That's
learns how to
what.
be tough.
But see, that goes
But
back.
no, this is a grown man.
Yeah, but
You
that's
know
what
what
I'm
I'm saying?
saying. Like that's where it
So
goes
it's
back
like,
to my points about this DEI stuff. Like it's the message is very subversive and it's very deep. And I know I may sound crazy, right? But I believe that's part of it. It's like stupid things like that where you have a grown man who's already law enforcement. He's already a police officer, but he's challenged with being a standing up for himself, and you know what I mean. Like
yeah,
it's,
so
it's just
how
the
did he become
most,
a police
it's the
officer?
stupidest scenario.
Yeah,
And you're
it's,
right. It's like that should be like a 12-year-old kid
yeah.
who is coming of age, and he's maybe just entered junior high or something, and he's got a bully, and he's afraid to stand up for himself,
Then he
and
meets Knuckles,
yeah, he
and
meets
then
Knuckles. Maybe he needs a father figure, and Knuckles becomes that, and the whole point is the kid learns to stand up for himself and be a warrior, quote unquote, right? But
yeah,
Knuckles also learns that being a warrior is deeper than just fighting and violence, right? Sometimes it's caring, and sometimes it's being a reasoned person,
hmm
and being a mentor to others, and except
yeah, like
you
that would have
understand, it's
been
like
that
those
would
are
have been
lessons.
cool.
Yeah, it's like, but I don't want to watch a grown man who may or may not be gay. I don't know. It's, you understand, like he's ambiguous, he's weak. It's like he's childlike, but it makes no sense. It's like it goes beyond just like the Barney Fife of old, right? Where he was kind of a bumbling sheriff on the Andy Griffith show, right?
Oh, that
Yeah,
guy. Yeah,
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 Barney
yeah.
Fife. I know I'm dating myself, but and
No,
and
I,
he
I
was kind
just
of
don't.
a
I didn't remember the
bumbling
dude's name. Yeah,
deputy and
yeah.
silly,
But here's the
but
thing, Barney
you
Fife.
could take him seriously
Yeah,
when it was time to take. Like he was a serious character in the
yeah. I
sense
was
that
about to
he
say,
had
like he would
challenges
stand
and he
up for
overcame.
himself. He
Yeah,
was
he
just
stood up for
small.
himself. Exactly. He wasn't a coward per se, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's all I'm saying. Like, you can have the comedy relief, like the bumbling aspect, but it's like give us, I don't know, give us a real character.
Uh,
And I
yeah.
don't know. I haven't watched finished it yet.
Well,
I've only
don't. It's
watched two
not. Don't.
episodes,
Just don't.
and I'm just not impressed. It
If you want
seems
a good
so,
Knuckles
I don't know.
story, then go read the comics.
I
That's what I
agree,
keep
and that's what
telling
I'm
people.
saying. Like this was an opportunity for them to create maybe an animated series based off the comics, right? Like why not do that?
I
That
don't.
and
Sega.
now
Sega just doesn't like the Archie
you
comics.
can set up this animated series for Sonic, for all of them in between the movies, right? That kind of work into the movies somehow, right? They don't even really have to. They
Hmm
could just be their own thing. But because the movies are there as sort of the tent poles, right, where it's the broad audience, but then say, hey, but check out the series where you get to see these characters kind of in their element and doing their thing and having these adventures. And then in there, you say, hey, check out the comics, and all this kind of stuff, right? But it's
hmm
like, yeah, it's like, I don't know what this show, who it's for or what it's for or what. It's just odd. I don't even remember this character. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, is he from the first movie? I guess I don't
And
know.
I
I
don't,
don't even
who
remember him.
cares?
So yeah, you
Who
don't even care. It's
cares?
like I don't know, but
Who
there's so
cares?
much happening in it that makes no sense, and it's like, what are they trying to do? Like it's just weird. So I don't know.
Uh,
It's like, yeah, I agree. It should have been a young man, um, who, I mean, a young man or a young girl. I mean, or both.
it should have
Maybe
been a child.
brother and sister, and
It should
they
have
each
been a
have
child.
their issues and challenges, and and
Yeah.
Knuckles somehow helps them do it in his own special way, right? Like it, there's a lot of angles you could have took, but this one just seems so out of left field, and maybe that's why they chose to do it, I guess, because it's so different. But I'm like, I don't see, what I mean? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this, what's the point of this story of a guy who is for some reason struggles with confidence, but he's a sheriff? You know what I mean? Like, what? I mean, honestly, what they should have done was have him not be law enforcement, not be a sheriff, but maybe he aspires to be a sheriff. You know what I mean? Like, and he's trying to become a sheriff, and you can still work in the bowling stuff somehow, but
No,
you understand?
no,
No, you,
I
you could.
don't.
That's fine. It's just, it's like you're doing all this just so you can win a bowling match, or like you were replaced by a little girl. Like, it's the most extreme nonsense, right? It's like, why are we going here when it's not necessary? Versus, like I said, make him where he wants to become a sheriff, and he has to unlock that warrior spirit, whatever. That would be great. And now it's like something more substantial, that he's trying to achieve. He's trying to, do something that's noble, right? Be a law enforcement officer, and prove that he's tough enough, and that he's, strong enough, right? That he's brave enough. That's great. You know what I mean? Like, but all this, like, I don't know, So, but then at least all the wimpiness and the, ambiguity would make a little more sense, I guess, right? You know, but yeah, it's like, it's kind of exhausting. Like, just watching it was exhausting. It's just like, what is this
Yeah,
guy
Knuckles deserved
deal?
better. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. He does, because that's the only thing that makes it bearable to watch is
Yeah, it's
Knuckles
Knuckles
being
himself. Yeah,
because Idris Elba, he's great.
yeah.
He does a great job.
Hmm.
So he's definitely fun to watch. As a character, but beyond that, like, everything happening around him is like,
Is
who wrote
bad and dumb and
this?
stupid. Yeah,
Yeah, like, who made this? I don't know. But yeah, we're gonna cut it out right there and
yeah.
call
Because
it a
I can
day.
talk about Sonic all
Yeah,
day,
we
but
go
I
on.
won't.
We should do a 24-hour live stream just talking about Sonic. That'll be interesting. But
Mm,
but all right, everyone, make it a wonderful day. Have a great Saturday. Thanks for tuning in.
we'll see you around.